I'm Cole Rivers, 22, and I run a pop-up phone repair stand outside Grand Central. My life consisted of replacing shattered screens and convincing tourists that, yes, the $90 liquid glass protector was absolutely worth it. That was my life until a Rolls-Royce, the color of polished ink, slid to the curb in front of me. An old butler in a full suit stepped out and clasped my hands, his eyes brimming with tears. "Mr. Cole," he said, his voice trembling, "we've finally found you. Turns out, I'm a long-lost heir to the Vance family, one of New York's oldest and wealthiest dynasties. A classic switched-at-birth situation. And the guy who'd been living my life for the past 22 years, Julian Vance, was a bona fide business prodigy lauded on the cover of Forbes. They told me they'd give me unimaginable wealth and luxury. All I had to do was come home. I looked at my bank account balance, $314, and decided I could probably handle it. I thought my life as a professional slacker was about to get a first-class upgrade. I was wrong. This wasn't a homecoming. It was a one-way ticket to a psychiatric ward. On my first day at the Vance Mansion, I wanted to die. Or, more accurately, I wanted to pack my bags and run back to the comforting smell of exhaust fumes and hot pretzel carts. The place was a gilded palace, so huge you could get lost on the way to the bathroom. The polished marble floors reflected the blinding light of a crystal chandelier that looked like it was stolen from a Bond villain's lair. My biological parents, Harrison Vance, the CEO of Vance Industries, and his wife, Eleanor, a woman who looked like she was carved from ivory, were staring at me. Their eyes were a toxic cocktail of guilt, affection, and clinical assessment, scanning me from my worn-out sneakers to my faded hoodie. "Oh, you poor dear," Eleanor whispered, her eyes turning red. "You've suffered so much all these years." I almost snorted. "It's not so bad. On a good day, I can clear $300. But seeing the fragile, about-to-shatter look on her face, I swallowed the words. "Dad, Mom." A voice, smooth as aged whiskey, drifted down from the grand staircase. I looked up. A man in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my entire life savings descended the stairs. His hair was perfectly coiffed, and he radiated an aura of Ivy League condescension. This had to be him, the imposter Julian Vance. He walked right up to me and extended a hand, a flawless smile plastered on his face. "You must be Cole. Welcome home. I'm Julian. I suppose that makes us brothers." I looked at his hand, which was cleaner than any surface I'd ever eaten off of, then down at my own calloused fingers, permanently stained with a faint layer of adhesive and grime. I wiped my hand on my jeans before shaking his. "Hey." That one word was enough to make his perfect smile flicker for a nanosecond. Dinner was even weirder. The dining table stretched on for what felt like a city block, covered in tiny, exquisite dishes that looked more like art installations than food. All I wanted was a frozen pizza and a couple of beers. "Cole, you must try the lobster. We had it flown in from Maine this morning," Harrison said, eagerly placing a monstrous lobster claw on my plate. I stared at the weaponized crustacean. It looked like more trouble than it was worth. You needed special tools, a stupid bib, and half an hour of wrestling just to get a bite of meat the size of my thumb. It was too much work. I quietly pushed it aside and focused on the plain white rice. "Don't you like it, dear?" Eleanor asked, her voice laced with anxiety. "It's not that," I said, telling the truth. "It's just a lot of effort to eat." The moment the words left my mouth, the entire room went silent. Harrison and Eleanor exchanged a look of profound, soul-crushing pity. "It's our fault," Eleanor choked out, her eyes welling up again. "We let our son suffer so much that he doesn't even know how to eat properly." I just stared at them. "Lady, I'm not suffering. I'm just lazy." Julian chose that moment to chime in, his voice dripping with condescending sympathy. "It's all right, Mother. My brother just isn't accustomed to this yet. These things take time. At the Vance table, a certain etiquette is expected." He then proceeded to dissect a piece of steak with the surgical precision of a master chef, every movement a silent judgment. I glanced at him, felt nothing but an overwhelming urge to yawn, and dropped my fork. "I'm full." It was the first complete sentence I'd managed all night. "But Cole, you've only had rice." "Rice is good. Fills you up," I said, standing. "I'm kind of tired. Think I'll head to bed." I left them all sitting there, gaping at me like I just sprouted a second head. The butler, Arthur, showed me to my room. It was 10 times the size of my old apartment, with its own walk-in closet and a bathroom bigger than most studio apartments. I flopped onto the king-size bed, which could have comfortably slept 5 of me, and sighed in relief. Finally, peace and quiet. But then I heard my new parents talking just outside the door. "Harrison, do you think he blames us?" "Of course he does. It's only natural. Did you see him tonight? He ate nothing but plain rice in front of a feast. It was a silent protest. And when he said it was too much effort, he was telling us how hard his life has been. It was a cry for help. Oh, we failed him." And his reaction to Julian. "He's so cold. He's putting up a wall. He appears indifferent, but inside, I'm sure there's a raging storm. The poor boy is using apathy as a shield. It's heartbreaking. Lying in bed, I was baffled. I'm not protesting. I don't have a wall up. I'm not a wounded bird. I'm just lazy and I hate small talk. With an imagination like that, these people should be writing screenplays." Just then my phone buzzed. It was my buddy from the stand, Big Mike. "Cole, my man, where you at? I got a code red over here. Some dude's iPhone screen is shattered into a million pieces. Looks like a spider web. He wants the premium ballistic glass, and my hands are too shaky for this." I shot up in bed like I'd been electrocuted. "Text me the address. I'm on my way." I hung up, threw on my old t-shirt and jeans, and bolted out of the room. The 3 Van Cess were huddled together in the living room, a cloud of gloom hanging over them. They froze when they saw me dressed to leave. "Cole, where are you going?" Harrison asked, his brow furrowed. "Out. It's so late. Is something wrong?" I couldn't exactly say. I was going to an underpass to fix a phone screen. Thinking fast, I channeled every cheesy billionaire movie I'd ever seen. I lowered my voice, gave them my best 1,000-yard stare, and said grimly, "A $3 million deal just came up. I have to handle it myself." Without another word, I stormed out of the mansion, leaving a deafening silence in my wake, punctuated only by the sound of 3 people simultaneously sucking in a sharp breath. I got to the spot under the bridge in record time. Big Mike looked like he'd just seen Jesus. "Cole, thank God you're here." I took the obliterated phone, and my hands went to work on instinct, cleaning the surface, aligning the new screen, and laying it down in one smooth motion. Perfect. Not a single air bubble. The customer, a guy with a thick gold chain around his neck, was thrilled. He handed me $300. I gave Mike 100, pocketed my 200, and felt a wave of pure satisfaction. This was real. This was solid. By the time I got back to the Vance mansion, it was after midnight, but the living room was lit up like Times Square. My fake parents and fake brother were sitting ramrod straight on the sofa, looking like they were waiting for a verdict from the Supreme Court. The second I walked in, all 3 of them shot to their feet. "Cole, you're back," Harrison said, his voice quivering slightly. "Yeah," I mumbled, heading for the stairs. "Wait," Harrison called out. The $3 million deal. How did it go?" I froze. Crap, I'd completely forgotten about that. It was just a random line I'd blurted out. How was I supposed to explain a $300 phone repair? Looking at their 3 faces, etched with a bizarre mixture of hope and anxiety, I knew I was in too deep. I had to keep the act going. I turned around, schooling my face into an expression of detached weariness, and let out 2 simple words. "It's done. Done." Harrison's voice cracked, jumping an octave. Eleanor covered her mouth, a gasp escaping. Julian's face was a mask of disbelief. Which project was it? The South Side development? No, that's a $30 million valuation. Was it the Sterling Enterprises merger? But Julian's been trying to land that for 3 months. Harrison started muttering to himself, his mind racing. I listened to the astronomical figures pouring out of his mouth, and my scalp started to prickle. I had to shut this down before I was exposed. I held up a hand, affecting an air of extreme exhaustion. It was a minor thing, not worth mentioning. I am tired. Going to bed. Then I walked up the stairs with a swagger I didn't feel, leaving them in my dust. Behind me, I heard Harrison's heavy breathing. "Did you see that? Did you see that?" he exclaimed, slapping his thigh. A minor thing, not worth mentioning. The confidence, the sheer audacity. I knew it. Eleanor sobbed, a sound of fierce pride in her voice. Our son was never ordinary. He was just, dormant. Only Julian stood silent, his face ashen, his hands clenched into tight fists. He stared at my retreating back, his eyes burning with a jealousy so intense it was practically radioactive. Impossible. A street punk who's been on his own for 20 years. How could it? I got back to my room, locked the door, and let out a long, shuddering breath. Acting was exhausting, way more tiring than fixing 100 phones. The next morning, I slept in until noon. When I finally dragged myself downstairs, the whole family was sitting at the breakfast table, waiting for me. Harrison jumped up as I appeared, his face glowing. "Cole, you're awake. Come eat. We received some incredible news at the office this morning." I yawned. "Oh yeah, Sterling Enterprises. The deal we've been chasing for months, the one that was a complete dead end. Their CEO called my office personally this morning. She said she wants to move forward with the partnership, and she specifically asked to work with you." My hand, holding a glass of orange juice, froze halfway to my mouth. Sterling Enterprises? Who the hell were they? She said she was incredibly impressed with your business philosophy and your boldness, Harrison gushed. "Cole, the person you met with last night. It was Victoria Sterling, wasn't it?" I blinked, completely lost. The person I met last night was Gold Chain Mike. Unless he was the secret chairman of Sterling Enterprises, going undercover to test the quality of phone repair services in the city. The plot was getting a little ridiculous, even for me. "Dad, that's impossible." Julian finally spoke, his face pale. "Victoria Sterling is notoriously difficult. There's no way." "No way." Harrison shot him a glare. "The proof is right in front of us. Cole accomplished in one night what you couldn't do in 3 months. What more is there to say?" Julian choked on his words, his handsome face turning a blotchy red. He looked at me as if I were a cockroach that had just stolen his inheritance. I felt a pang of something that might have been guilt. I hadn't done anything. All I wanted was a decent night's sleep, and I'd somehow accidentally sabotaged this guy's career. "Cole, tell me the truth. How did you convince her?" Harrison asked, leaning in with the earnestness of a disciple. What was I supposed to say? That I fixed her dad's phone, and he was so grateful he handed me a multi-million-dollar contract? Nobody would believe that. I had no choice but to lean into my new persona as a mysterious, silent genius. "It was nothing," I said coolly. "We just talked." "Just talked?" Harrison's eyes lit up as if I'd just revealed the secrets of the universe. "What did you talk about? Share your wisdom with us." The entire family stared at me, hanging on my every potential word. My head started to ache. "What do we talk about?" I talked to Gold Chain Mike about the weather, about gas prices, about his new haircut. That wasn't exactly boardroom material. I racked my brain, tried to remember anything profound from our conversation. Then I recalled something he'd said when he paid me. I cleared my throat and adopted the weary tone of a man who had seen it all. "I just told her that money is fleeting," I said, looking off into the distance. "In business, the most important thing is connection." Silence. The dining room was so quiet you could hear a stock market crash. Harrison stood frozen, his mouth hanging open. Eleanor looked at me with stars in her eyes. Julian's face went from red to a ghostly white. "Money is fleeting. Connection." Harrison whispered the words to himself. Then, as if struck by lightning, he slammed his hand on the table. "Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. While we're all grubbing for profit, he's already grasped the fundamental truth of commerce. This isn't about strategy anymore. This is about philosophy. It's a higher plane of existence." I just sat there dumbfounded. "Please stop. My brain can't keep up with your mental gymnastics. I just want to be a slacker." Thanks to my one-sentence takedown of Sterling Enterprises, my status in the Vance family skyrocketed. Harrison now looked at me like I was the second coming of Steve Jobs. He immediately shoved me into Vance Industries with the title of Executive Vice President, putting me on the same level as Julian. I think he was hoping I'd work myself to death so he could inherit my... Wait, I didn't have anything to inherit. Naturally, I refused. "I'm not doing it," I said, melting into the living room sofa like a forgotten carton of ice cream. "Why not?" Harrison asked, confused. "A man of your talents can't just sit at home. Work is tiring, and I can't wake up that early," I said honestly. Harrison stared at me for a moment. Then his expression shifted into one of dawning comprehension. "Ah, I see. You're testing us again, aren't you?" Don't worry, Cole. You can do whatever you want in the company. Even if you run it into the ground, I'll support you. I didn't believe him for a second. In the end, I was practically dragged to the office. Harrison gave me a corner office bigger than my last 3 apartments combined, then dropped a stack of files on the desk that was thick enough to stop a bullet. Here, Cole. These are a few of the company's most challenging projects. Take a look, pick one to practice on. Practice? The only thing I wanted to practice was my nap schedule. As soon as he left, I pushed the files aside, pulled out my phone, and opened Candy Crush. Now, this was a game for a man of action. I was in the middle of a killer combo when someone knocked. A young guy with black-rimmed glasses and an earnest face walked in, holding an even taller stack of files. Mr. Vance, sir. My name is Leo Martinez from the project development team. I have a few proposals that need your signature. He placed the files on my desk, right on top of my phone. My color bomb, gone forever. I felt a stab of genuine loss, but kept my face impassive. Just leave them, I said, waving a dismissive hand. I wanted him gone so I could get back to my game. But Leo didn't move. He stood there, wringing his hands. Sir, these are all time sensitive. If you could just... I frowned, my patience wearing thin. All these people ever wanted was a signature. So annoying. I grabbed the top file, flipped to the last page, and scrawled my name. There. Now go. Leo just stared at me. Sir, you're not even going to read it. Nope, I said, not bothering to look up. I trust your professional judgment. What I was actually thinking was, please, for the love of God, get out of my office so I can crush some candy. Leo's whole body jolted. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning adoration. He adjusted his glasses, his voice trembling slightly. Mr. Vance, you really trust me? Sir, you don't understand. This proposal, I pulled 3 all-nighters working on it. But Mr. Julian Vance said the idea was too radical, too high risk. He shot it down immediately. Leo's eyes started to get misty. I thought it was dead in the water. But you approved it without even looking. You believe in me. Sir, you're my champion. With that, he gave me a deep, formal bow. I was completely baffled. Dude, listen, I'm not your champion. I'm just terminally lazy. But before I could say anything, Leo had already snatched the file and practically skipped out of my office, clutching it like it was the Holy Grail. I opened my mouth and closed it. Whatever. I picked up my phone and got back to the important things in life. I spent the rest of the afternoon happily swiping candy. Just before closing time, Julian stormed at my office. His face was dark, and he was holding the very file I'd signed that morning. He slammed it onto my desk. Cole, what the hell do you think you're doing? The sudden noise made me jump, and my phone nearly went flying. What are you yelling about? I asked, annoyed. What am I yelling about? Julian let out a bitter laugh. Do you have any idea what you just signed? A virtual influencer project. What kind of insane, futuristic nonsense is that? Do you know how much money the company will lose when this ridiculous thing fails? Oh, I said calmly, tucking my phone into my pocket. So it loses money. It's not my money. Julian looked like I just slapped him. He pointed a trembling finger at me. You're unbelievable. You're trying to destroy this company. No, I'm not. Don't be dramatic, I said, standing up to leave. It's your family's company, not mine. Why would I want to destroy it? I just thought that kid, Leo, seemed like he had some passion. I added, deciding to pour a little more fuel on the fire. You got to give the young guys a chance to innovate. Unlike some people who are stuck in their ways, afraid of change. With a casual wave, I strolled out of the office, leaving Julian standing there, sputtering in my wake. His face cycled through a whole spectrum of colors before settling on a dark, furious purple. Stuck in my ways, afraid of change. He muttered to himself, his eyes burning with humiliation and rage. The Wharton graduate, the Wall Street prodigy, had just been called a dinosaur by a guy who fixed phones for a living. The indignity was absolute. Meanwhile, I'd already forgotten the entire conversation. Quitting time is sacred. It was time to go home and lie down. I figured the whole virtual influencer thing would be a spectacular failure. A quiet, expensive flop. Best case scenario, Harrison would get pissed off, fire me, and I could go back to my life of glorious inactivity. It was a perfect plan. A month later, reality slapped me across the face. I was in my office, using the giant projector to watch a movie when the door was kicked open. Harrison burst in, his face flushed with excitement, followed by a parade of senior executives, all of them beaming like they'd just won the lottery. Cole, we did it. We actually did it. Harrison charged across the room and wrapped me in a bear hug, squeezing the air out of my lungs. What? What did we do? I wheezed. Starlight. Our virtual influencer, Starlight. She's a hit. She's gone viral, completely blown up online. My mind went blank. Starlight? Wasn't that the dumb name I'd given the digital character because there was a bright star outside my window that night? Cole, you're an absolute visionary. Harrison finally let me go, clapping me hard on the shoulder. Who could have possibly predicted the explosion of the VTuber market? When you signed off on Leo's project, you already knew this would happen, didn't you? You saw it all. I just stared at him, speechless. I saw it all. The only thing I saw was a game of Candy Crush that needed my immediate attention. Mr. Vance, you're a genius. Yeah, we all thought the project was insane, but you saw the potential. You should see the look on Mr. Julian's face right now. The executives swarmed me, showering me with praise until my head was spinning. I looked at their worshipful faces and felt like a fraud being roasted over an open flame. Help me. Somebody, please get me out of here. I just want to be useless. Why is it so hard? Just then, Julian appeared in the doorway, his face a thundercloud. The room instantly fell silent. He stared at me, his eyes a complex mix of awe and horror, like he was looking at some kind of alien creature. I still don't understand, he said, his voice hoarse. How did you do it? The digital avatar market changes by the second. How did you know exactly what users would connect with? Yeah, how did I know? I had no idea. I looked at his earnest, questioning face, and my brain kicked into overdrive. I had to come up with something, anything that didn't sound like I got lucky. An idea sparked, a scene from a movie I'd watched last week. I cleared my throat, slowly rose from my chair, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. I stood with my back to them, presenting a silhouette of lonely, misunderstood genius. I tilted my head up at a 45-degree angle and spoke in a low, melancholic voice. Because I wasn't looking at the data, Julian, I wasn't looking at the market. I paused for dramatic effect. I was looking at the human heart, every lonely soul, scrolling through their phone in the middle of the night. They all just need a starlight to guide them. I took a deep breath, as if I carried the weight of all the world's sadness on my shoulders. The office was dead silent. Every single person in the room was stunned by my profound, philosophical bullshit. Harrison's eyes were misty. The human heart, he whispered reverently. My God, we were so focused on profits, we forgot about people. Cole's vision, it's on another level entirely. The executives nodded in unison, their expressions of admiration deepening into something approaching religious awe. Only Julian remained motionless, his body trembling slightly. He stared at my back as if I were a god on Mount Olympus. All his precious business models, his data analytics, his MBA, all of it seemed pathetically flimsy in the face of two simple words, the human heart. I see, he whispered, then turned and walked out of the office like a man in a trance. Watching his defeated figure disappear, I felt no sense of victory, only a rising tide of panic. Crap, I just cemented my reputation as a genius. My dream of being a professional slacker was now further away than ever. I'm so tired. I don't want to see the human heart. I just want to see my bed. The spectacular success of the Starlight project launched my reputation at the company into the stratosphere. Employees started looking at me with the kind of reverence usually reserved for cult leaders. Whispers and hushed gasps follow me down the hallways. Look, it's Mr. Vance. Wow. Even the way he walks seems to hold a deep insight into the human condition. Quiet, just feel it. His aura can purify your soul. I swear to God, I'm not insightful. I just didn't get enough sleep, and I'm a little wobbly. Please, stop writing my fan fiction for me. Harrison now deferred to my every whim, practically ready to hand over the keys to the kingdom. He even announced at a board meeting, from now on, whatever Cole decides is the final word. No one is to question him. Julian had been completely sidelined. He now shuffled into the office every morning with dark circles under his eyes, looking at me with a dazed expression of confusion and self-doubt. I realized if I didn't do something drastic, I was going to end up CEO, chained to this desk until I died of exhaustion. No, I had to act. I had to shatter my business prodigy image once and for all. How? Simple. I needed to screw up a project. And not just any project. I needed a failure of epic, world-ending proportions. My chance arrived sooner than I expected. The company was bidding on a huge parcel of land on the west side, with plans to build a new flagship commercial center. It was the biggest deal of the year, and everyone was watching. Harrison handed the final proposal to me for approval. I looked at the meticulously crafted, utterly perfect plan and knew this was it. My moment had come. All I had to do was propose something so mind-bogglingly stupid that the deal would collapse, along with my reputation. Harrison would finally see me as the incompetent fool I truly was and kick me out. I could almost taste the freedom. My slacker life was calling to me. At the final bid strategy meeting, the boardroom was packed with every senior executive. Julian was there too, sitting in a corner, radiating the depressed energy of a wilted houseplant. Harrison called on me to present my final vision for the project. I cleared my throat and walked to the front of the room, basking in their expectant gazes. I clicked on the projector. The screen was blank except for two large, bold words. The cemetery. A stunned silence fell over the room. Everyone stared, blinked, and stared again, certain they were hallucinating. Ahem. I coughed, breaking the spell. My idea is this. We scrap the commercial center. Instead, we develop the land into a state-of-the-art, high-tech luxury. Memorial Park. Think about it. The price of burial plots in this city is insane. It's a completely untapped market for the luxury sector. We could offer bespoke services. We could have a service that compresses your loved one's ashes into a diamond. We could offer virtual reality visitations. We could even host singles mixers for ghosts. I was getting so into it, I almost convinced myself it was a good idea. The people in the boardroom, however, were completely frozen, their expressions shifting from shock to disbelief to the vacant stare of people witnessing a public breakdown. Harrison's mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no sound came out. Julian shot out his chair, pointing at me, his voice trembling with rage. Cole, are you insane? That land is the future heart of the city. You want to turn it into a graveyard. See, this is your problem, Julian. You lack vision, I said, shaking my head with fake disappointment. This is called disruptive thinking. Everyone else is focused on the living. I'm cornering the market on the dead. It's competitive differentiation. Julian clutched his chest, looking like he was about to have a heart attack right there. This is madness. Utter madness. An old board member finally exploded, slamming his fist on the table. Mr. Vance, I strongly object. If word of this gets out, we'll be the laughingstock of the entire industry. A chorus of agreement erupted. It's absurd. He's lost his mind. Yes, this was it. Music to my ears. Yell at me. Fire me. Set me free. But just as I was mentally packing my bags, Harrison, who had been silent this whole time, spoke. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise like a knife. I think Cole has a point. Me? Question mark. The entire room? Question mark. Harrison slowly stood up and walked to my side. He stared at the word cemetery on the screen, a strange light glinting in his eyes. You all see a graveyard. You see a joke. But do you see the deeper meaning? Cole didn't choose this project to make money. He's trying to wake us up. He's trying to warn all of us who have been blinded by greed and ambition. What is the end of business? What is the end of life? It's nothing more than a return to the earth. He's using this extreme proposal to teach us a lesson about humility, about what truly matters. He's not building a cemetery. He's building a monument to warn us of our own mortal vanity. Harrison was getting more and more emotional. And then, to my absolute horror, he turned to me and bowed deeply. Cole, son, you've taught me a valuable lesson today. I felt my soul leave my body. Are you kidding me? You can spin it that way. The executives in the room, after a moment of stunned silence, all began to nod, their faces morphing into expressions of profound understanding. Of course. How could we have been so blind? Mr. Vance's genius is beyond our comprehension. To use a business proposal as a philosophical statement, it's transcendent. In the corner, Julian stared at me, his anger melting away into confusion. And then, was that admiration? I think he was actually buying it. I looked around the room at the sea of worshipful faces and felt like I had slipped into an alternate dimension. I just wanted to get fired. Why is everyone acting like I'm their guru? Somebody help me. In the end, the cemetery project didn't happen. Not because anyone in the company objected, but because the New York City Department of City Planning sent back our application with a curt note that read, "The construction of any and all mortuary facilities is strictly prohibited in prime commercial zones. We advise the applicant's leadership to seek a mental health evaluation." When I saw that letter, I almost cried with joy. Thank you, basic zoning laws. Thank you, bureaucracy. Finally, a sane person who understood I was just talking nonsense. Harrison, however, read the letter with a deep, world-weary sigh. The masses are not yet ready for your vision, Cole. It's a shame. A true shame. Yeah, a real shame I didn't get my walking papers. Though the project failed, my reputation within the company, burnished by my philosophical business performance art, became even more untouchable. I wasn't just a VP anymore. I was practically the office Dalai Lama. Julian's attitude toward me had completely changed. He was no longer my rival. He was my most devoted disciple, trailing me everywhere, trying to decode the great business Tao for my every mundane action. I'd fall asleep at my desk, and he'd solemnly write in his notebook, "A master knows when to rest." In the midst of chaos, he finds inner peace, a strategic retreat to advance with greater force. I'd order a greasy slice of pizza for lunch. He'd analyze it with glowing eyes, a return to simplicity. By shunning extravagant meals for the food of the common man, he demonstrates that his focus is on the vast, untapped potential of the mass market. I'd spend half an hour in the bathroom with a bad case of constipation. He'd pace outside the door, muttering to himself, before concluding, he is in deep meditation. A profound business epiphany is about to be born on that toilet. He was driving me insane. Bro, please leave me alone. I'm not having an epiphany. I just need more fiber in my diet. To escape Julian, I started looking for excuses to get out of the office. I heard a new cat cafe had opened downtown, filled with fluffy, pedigree cats you could pet all day. I was sold. On a beautiful sunny afternoon, I skipped work. I told my assistant I was going to scout a new venture in the companionship economy. She saw me off with a look of pure, unadulterated reverence. I found the cafe, ordered a coffee, and settled into a cozy corner with a fat, placid ragdoll cat in my lap. This was the life. Cats were so much better than my family of drama queens. I was in a state of blissful, purr-induced nirvana when a woman in a sharp power suit sat down opposite me. "Excuse me, are you Cole Vance?" I looked up startled. The woman was beautiful, with bright, intelligent eyes and an aura of command that could stop traffic. She was clearly a big deal. "Do I know you?" I asked. "You could say that," she said with a small smile. "My name is Victoria Sterling. I'm the CEO of Sterling Enterprises." Sterling Enterprises? The name rang a bell. Our biggest competitor. What did she want with me? "Can I help you?" I asked, holding the cat a little closer like a fluffy shield. "Nothing urgent. I've just heard so much about your unique business insights. I thought I'd seek your wisdom myself," she said, her gaze dropping to the cat in my lap. "I must say your method of market research is quite unconventional." My face flushed. Great. Caught skipping work by the CEO of our rival company. Ahem. I clear my throat, trying to salvage some dignity. "You misunderstand. I'm immersing myself in the user experience. Finding inspiration." "Oh," she asked, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "And what inspiration have you found so far?" Inspiration? My only inspiration was that this cat was incredibly soft and made a great pillow. But I couldn't say that. I looked in her eyes, which seemed to see right through my slacker soul, and knew I had to come up with something good. I stroked the cat thoughtfully, then began. "Look at this cat, Ms. Sterling. It does nothing all day. It eats, it sleeps, it looks cute. And for that, it receives unconditional love and affection. What does that tell us?" She raised an eyebrow, waiting. "It tells us that in today's high-stress society, people aren't lacking material goods. They're starved for emotional connection. They will pay for cute. They will pay for comforting. Therefore, the next great frontier in business isn't about the value you create. It's about the emotional value you provide. We're no longer selling products. We're selling companionship. We're selling stress relief. We're selling a reason to feel good. I finished my monologue, feeling pretty pleased with myself. It was all just buzzwords I'd picked up from scrolling through marketing blogs, but it sounded impressive. Victoria Sterling was silent for a long time. She just looked at me, her expression a mix of shock, admiration, and something else. The thrill of finding a worthy opponent. Finally, she clapped her hands softly. Emotional value. Mr. Vance, your perspective is truly revolutionary. Sterling Enterprises is actually planning a move into the pet care industry. Your words have given me a great deal to think about. Thank you for the consultation. She stood, offered me her hand, and said, I hope we have a chance to collaborate in the future. I shook her hand politely and watched her go, letting out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. That was close. Another one fooled. I had no idea that a few days later, Sterling Enterprises would announce a multi-billion-dollar initiative called Pet Planet, an integrated online and offline pet experience, with providing emotional value as its core marketing principle. The project set the venture capital world on fire. And so, the legend of how I inspired my greatest rival with a single conversation began to spread. When Harrison found out, he was so excited he couldn't sleep all night. He pointed at a business news segment featuring Victoria Sterling and yelled, Do you see, Cole? Even our competitors are coming to you for advice. You are the cornerstone of this family. I just stared at Victoria's smiling face on the TV and thought, Lady, you have no idea how much trouble you just caused me. After enlightening Victoria Sterling, my reputation in the business world reached mythical proportions. The word on the street was that Cole Vance was a once-in-a-generation genius who had transcended petty competition and achieved a state of corporate zen. Rumor had it, a single piece of advice from me could save you a decade of work. As a result, a pilgrimage of entrepreneurs began to form outside my office door. A guy starting a restaurant chain came to me asking for the secret to a successful menu. I was eating a cup of instant noodles at the time and mumbled, Just make it taste good. He went back, stripped his menu of all the fancy garbage, focused entirely on flavor, and turned his tiny diner into a viral sensation. A fashion designer asked me for my prediction on next season's trends. I looked down at the faded band t-shirt I'd been wearing since college and said, Comfort is key. She went on to launch a new brand of minimalist linen clothing that became an international hit. I was losing my mind. Do any of you people have your own ideas? Why do you believe everything I say? I'm just a guy who wants to lie on his couch. Desperate to escape my own cult, I decided to take a long vacation. I told Harrison my creative well had run dry, and I needed to go on a spiritual journey to rediscover the harmony between man and nature. Harrison was immediately supportive, pressing a black card with no spending limit into my hand. Go, Cole. Go and find your truth. Don't worry about the company. I'll handle everything. I took the card and felt like I'd just been granted a presidential pardon. I immediately booked a one-way ticket to the Maldives. Sun, sand, and blissful solitude, here I come. But as I was dragging my suitcase through the airport, dreaming of freedom, I ran into the one person I wanted to see least in the world. Julian. He was also dragging a suitcase, dressed in resort wear. His face lit up when he saw me. Cole, you're going to the Maldives too? My stomach dropped. What are you doing here? Well, Julian said, blushing slightly, I heard you were going on a spiritual journey to find your truth, and I felt like I needed that too. I was hoping I could come with you, to learn from you. Learn? Learn what? How to achieve the perfect level of horizontal inactivity. I was going on vacation, not opening a mountaintop monastery. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Look, Julian, I said, patting his shoulder paternally. This truth stuff, it's a solo journey. You can't find it by following someone else. The real truth is inside you. I hoped the vague, spiritual nonsense would be enough to get rid of him. But Julian's eyes just grew wider with admiration. I understand, he exclaimed. You're telling me the master can only open the door. The student must walk the path himself. You want me to think independently, not just follow you blindly. Don't worry, Cole, I won't bother you. I'll just watch from a distance, quietly, and learn. I just stared at him. I was going to be sick. And so, my solo slacker's paradise vacation became a two-man quest for corporate enlightenment. In the Maldives, I booked the most luxurious overwater bungalow I could find. My daily routine consisted of lying on the deck, staring at the ocean, and doing absolutely nothing. And every day, Julian would set up a little stool nearby, watching me with intense focus, scribbling in his little notebook. I'd stretch my arms. He'd write, aligning the body with the Earth's energy, feeling the pulse of the universe. I'd sip a coconut water. He'd write, replenishing with the essence of nature, maintaining physical and spiritual balance. I doze off. He'd write, entering a meditative state. The consciousness separates from the body to commune with the elements and explore the primordial truth of existence. I felt less like I was on vacation and more like I was a lab rat being dissected. If this kept up, I was going to have a nervous breakdown. I had to get him away from me. One day, an idea struck me as I gazed out at the endless expanse of blue. I pointed to the ocean. Julian, look at the sea. I see it. Do you want to know the ultimate secret of business? His eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. He nodded frantically. I stood up slowly, spread my arms wide as if to embrace the horizon, and said, the ultimate secret is to become one with it. I paused, then lowered my voice to a hypnotic whisper. Jump. If you jump, if you let the ocean embrace you, you will feel its boundless power, its all-encompassing strength. And then you will finally understand. This has to work, I thought. He'll see that I'm completely insane and leave me alone. Julian stared at me, then at the churning water below. His face was a battlefield of doubt and desperate faith. Finally, he clenched his jaw, his eyes hardening with resolve. Understand, he declared. To gain the ultimate prize, one must be willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. And with that, he took a running leap and plunged into the sea. I froze. My entire brain short-circuited. Dude, I was kidding. You actually jumped? I peered over the edge and saw Julian flailing in the water, sputtering and shouting, I get it. I finally get it. This is the tide of capital. I can feel it. I buried my face in my hands. It was over. I'd gone too far. Not only had I failed to get rid of him, I had turned him into a full-blown lunatic. As I watched my fake brother being enlightened by the Indian Ocean, I felt a single, despairing thought. I just wanted to be a slacker. Why is the entire world conspiring to make me a cult leader? When the hotel lifeguards pulled Julian out of the ocean, he'd swallowed a fair amount of salt water, but his spirit was soaring. He grabbed one of the bewildered guards by the arm and breathlessly shared his epiphany. The ocean, it's the free market. The waves are venture capital, and we are but small fish, learning to ride the currents to success. The lifeguard just stared at him, then shot me a worried look. Sir, is your friend okay up here? He asked, tapping his head. All I could do was offer a weak, pained smile. He's, very passionate. From that day forward, Julian's worship of me transcended mere admiration and entered the realm of religious fanaticism. He was utterly convinced that by telling him to jump off a deck, I was performing a kind of high-risk, baptismal instruction. He was no longer my disciple. He was my first apostle. My Maldivian vacation was ruined. Tormented by Julian's insatiable quest for knowledge, I cut the trip short and fled back to the States. I thought I could finally get some peace. I was wrong. The moment I stepped into the arrivals hall at JFK, I was ambushed by Harrison and Eleanor. Behind them stood a solemn delegation of the company's oldest board members. They were all looking at me like I was a conquering hero returning from war. Cole, you're back. Harrison cried, seizing my hands. You have no idea what's been happening while you were gone. A cold dread washed over me. Oh no, don't tell me another one of my stupid, offhand remarks came true. Remember what you said about emotional value being the next big thing? Victoria Sterling's Pet Planet project, the one inspired by you, has already tripled its initial valuation. And that restaurant you told to just make it taste good, they've opened 10 new locations. And that clothing brand you said should focus on comfort, it just won a major international design award. With every word Harrison spoke, my heart sank deeper into my stomach. The entire business world is calling you the Midas touch, the Oracle of New York. They're saying anyone you talk to strikes gold. Cole, my boy, you are the guiding star of this family. The world started spinning. I'm not the Midas touch. I'm not an oracle. I'm just a guy who says random things. Cole, A sharp, feminine voice cut through the noise. I turned to see Victoria Sterling striding towards me, a vision in a stunning red dress. Cole, on behalf of Sterling Enterprises, I would like to formally offer you the position of Chief Strategic Consultant, she said, her eyes locked on mine. Name your price. The only requirement is that you have coffee with me once a week. Just to talk. My brain stalled. A Chief Strategic Consultant job that was just chatting over coffee? This was it. This was the dream slacker job I was born for. I was about to say yes when Harrison pulled me behind him, glaring at Victoria like a protective bulldog. Ms. Sterling, what is the meaning of this? Are you trying to poach my son right in front of me? It's not poaching, Mr. Vance. A talent like Cole shouldn't be confined to one company. His mind belongs to the world, Victoria retorted, not backing down an inch. Just as a full-blown turf war was about to erupt in the middle of baggage claim, an unexpected savior appeared. Julian. He pushed through the crowd and planted himself firmly in front of me, shielding me from Victoria's intense gaze. Ms. Sterling, please, leave him alone. Julian's voice was steady and sharp, completely different from his usual fawning tone. His wisdom is not a commodity to be bought and sold. You don't understand his purpose. He is here to guide us toward a deeper understanding of commerce, of life itself. He can't be bothered with petty profits and corporate games. If you truly respect him, you will keep your distance and not tarnish him with your worldly ambitions. He delivered the speech with the righteous fury of a temple guardian. Victoria was stunned. Harrison was stunned. I was stunned. I looked at Julian's back at this man who had, for the first time, stood up for me. Bro, you said it perfectly. That's exactly what I want. Tell them all to leave me alone so I can go be untarnished on my couch. Victoria stared at me for a long moment, then at the unshakable zealot standing before me. She sighed. I see. Forgive my presumption. She gave me a slight nod and turned, disappearing back into the crowd. The crisis was averted. Thanks to Julian. For the first time, I thought maybe this fake brother wasn't so bad after all. My fleeting moment of gratitude was shattered when Julian turned back to me, his eyes blazing with a terrifying, holy light. Don't worry, Cole. From this day forward, I will be your protector. I will not allow any of these mortals to disturb your sacred work. My brief warmth toward him evaporated instantly. My protector? Dude, have you been reading too many fantasy novels? I don't need a protector. I just need some personal space. Somebody save me from my savior. With Julian self-appointed as my protector of the sacred Tao, my life descended into a new circle of hell. He shadowed me 24 hours a day to, in his words, shield me from the distractions of the material world. When I went to work, he opened my car door. When I ate lunch, he insisted on tasting everything first, not for poison, but to ensure its energetic properties were suitable. When I went to the bathroom, he stood guard outside the door like a Secret Service agent, glaring at anyone who dared to walk by too loudly. The office staff started treating me less like a boss and more like a fragile, living relic that might crumble to dust if spoken to directly. My personal freedom was officially gone. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Julian into my office, determined to have it out. Julian, I began, trying to keep my voice calm and reasonable. Look, you're an adult. You have your own career, your own life. You don't need to follow me around all day. No, he cut me off, his eyes burning with conviction. Protecting you is my career now. This is another one of your tests, isn't it? You're testing the strength of my devotion. I buried my face in my hands. No, I'm really not. Julian, please listen to me, I said, taking a deep breath. I'm not a god. I'm just a regular guy. I like playing video games, watching movies, and sleeping in. All that profound stuff I said before, I made it all up. It was all a lie. Please don't take it seriously. I was laying all my cards on the table. This had to work. Even his galaxy brain imagination couldn't misinterpret a direct confession. I was wrong. He didn't look disappointed. He looked ecstatic. I knew it, he gasped, slapping his thigh. The greatest masters always disguise themselves as ordinary men. Playing video games. You're honing your strategic mind and reflexes. Watching movies. You're studying the infinite complexities of the human condition. Sleeping in. You're restoring your spiritual energy. Cole, You don't have to hide anymore. I see through your disguise. I understand everything. I stared at his face, which was glowing with the light of 1,000 misguided epiphanies, and felt a profound sense of defeat. There was no escape. Just let the world end. I'm ready. As I slumped in my chair, utterly broken, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered it listlessly. "Hello, is this Cole?" a weak, raspy voice asked. "Speaking. Who is this?" "This is your grandfather." I blinked. Grandfather? I was an orphan. Oh, right. The Vance family patriarch. I'd heard he was sick and living abroad. I hadn't met him yet. "Sir, is there something I can do for you?" "I'm dying," the old man said, his voice thin as paper. "And before I go, I want to see you." After I hung up, Julian was right there, his face etched with concern. "What is it? Who is that?" "My grandfather. He said he's dying and wants to see me." Julian's expression changed instantly. He grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the door. "Come on, I'll drive you to the hospital." On the way, Julian gave me the rundown on the man I was about to meet. My grandfather, the original Harrison Vance, was the family's true titan, a self-made legend who built Vance Industries from nothing. He was known for being brutally harsh and impossibly shrewd. Everyone in the family was terrified of him. "Grandfather, he was never happy about you coming back," Julian said quietly, his face grim. "He said you grew up on the streets, that you were untamed, a risk to the family name. For him to ask for you now, this might not be a friendly visit." A flicker of hope ignited within me. An unreasonable, sharp old man? A traditionalist who hated me on principle? He sounded perfect. He sounded sane. This man could be my ticket out. If I could just lean in my lazy, good-for-nothing persona, he'd see me for the fraud I was, disown me, and kick me out of the family for good. I would finally be free. I arrived at the hospital and was led into a private suite. The legendary patriarch was lying in bed, a frail skeleton of a man, but his eyes were still sharp and piercing as an eagle's. He looked me up and down and snorted. "So you're Cole." "That's me," I said, doing my best to look as shiftless and unkempt as possible. "Umph. You look exactly as common as I expected," he snapped. Yes, this was it. "Keep it coming, old man." "Father." Harrison and Eleanor rushed in, their faces clouded with worry. "All of you get out," the old man ordered, waving a bony hand. "I need to speak with him alone." Once the room was empty, he fixed me with a stare that felt like it was peeling back my skin. "I hear you've been making quite a name for yourself at the company," he said, his voice dripping with suspicion. Whatever. They just like to blow things out of proportion," I said, picking at a loose thread on my jeans. Blow things out of proportion? Landing the sterling deal with a single sentence? Launching a viral sensation with one signature? Inspiring your top competitor with a few words? You call that luck? Guess I'm just lucky. I shrugged. Luck? He let out a dry, rattling laugh. Do you take me for a fool? He suddenly pulled a thick file from under his pillow and threw it on the bed in front of me. I had my people look into you. This is your entire life story. My blood ran cold. I picked it up. It was a comprehensive dossier on my 22 years of existence. It detailed when I learned to fix phones, my record for screen replacements in a single day, even my preference for adding 2 eggs to my instant ramen. A punk from the streets with no education and no connections, who somehow manages to turn the entire New York business world on its head in a matter of months. The old man leaned forward, his eyes boring into mine. Tell me, he hissed, who are you really working for? Who sent you? What is your real reason for infiltrating my family? I stared at his face, contorted with suspicion and rage, and my mind went completely blank. I thought he was the sane one. I was wrong. He was the craziest one of them all. He thought I was a corporate spy. Staring down the barrel of my grandfather's paranoid interrogation, I felt my brain begin to melt. A corporate spy? I wished I were that competent. I looked at the old man's face, a mask of grim certainty, and wanted to cry. Sir, you've really got it all wrong. Don't you dare call me sir, he snarled. Who is your handler? Is it the Chenault family? Or the Mortimers? What did they offer you to bring my company to its knees? I just stared at him blankly. I didn't know any Chenaults or Mortimers. The only powerful family I knew was the one that owned the bodega on my old block. I swear, I just fixed phones. I pleaded, my voice barely a whisper. Still lying, he coughed, a racking, painful sound. Do you think I'm stupid? That Sterling deal you landed. I found out you replaced Victoria Sterling's father's phone screen protector last year. You targeted him from the beginning, didn't you? I froze. Gold chain Mike's daughter? I think I did fix a phone for a college girl once. And that boy, Leo Martinez, the one whose project you approved? His last apartment was in the building next to yours. You recruited him as an inside man, didn't you? My jaw went slack. Leo lived next door to me? What were the odds? And Victoria Sterling, that cat cafe where you had your little chance encounter? She's a regular there. You tracked her movements, didn't you? You set the whole thing up. I was completely and utterly dumbfounded. I didn't know any of this. This old man had constructed a conspiracy theory more intricate and detailed than my actual life. He should be working for the CIA. Seeing my shocked silence, my grandfather took it as a confession. A bitter, broken smile spread across his face. Brilliant, he whispered. Truly brilliant. A masterfully executed plan, years in the making. To think we welcomed a viper into our home. No, it's not. My defense was pathetic, even to my own ears. You still deny it? He raged, pointing a trembling finger at me. Do you think I can't see your ambition? You pretend to be a lazy fool. You act like you don't care about the family or the money, all to make us lower our guard. You deliberately undermined Julian, making him look incompetent to pave your own way to the top. Everything you've done has been for one purpose, to steal this company from us. He was gasping for air now, his face a dangerous shade of red. I looked at him, at this intricate web of delusion he had spun, and realized it was hopeless. I was just a slacker, but in his eyes, I was a Machiavellian mastermind. I'm telling you, he wheezed, his eyes still burning with fury. As long as I am breathing, you will not succeed. I'm writing a new will. Every share of my stock, everything I own, will go to Julian. You will not get a single penny. Now, get out. Get out of my sight. He snatched the water glass from his bedside table and hurled it at me. I dodged, and it shattered on the floor behind me. I stumbled out of the room. Harrison, Eleanor, and Julian rushed toward me. Cole, what happened? What did he say to you? I looked at their anxious faces, then back at the closed door of the hospital room. A wave of exhaustion, so profound it was physical, washed over me. I was done. I couldn't play this game anymore. He's kicking me out of the family, I said quietly. What? Harrison exclaimed. He said he's giving all his shares to Julian. I get nothing. How could he do this? Eleanor cried. Only Julian stood silently, his expression unreadable. I looked at him and almost laughed. Here I was, the real heir, about to be thrown back onto the street, while the imposter who had been living my life was about to inherit a fortune. Good. It was for the best. I was finally free. I turned to them. Dad, Mom, Julian, I am sorry. Maybe grandfather was right. I don't belong here. I think I'll just go back to my old life. And with that, I turned and walked away. This time, no one stopped me. Behind me, I could hear my mother's sobs and my father's shouts, but I didn't look back. Walking down that long, sterile hospital corridor, I felt lighter than I had in months. Goodbye, crazy rich people. Goodbye, endless drama. My life of beautiful, uncomplicated laziness was waiting. I hadn't even made it to the lobby when my phone buzzed. It was Julian. Cole, don't leave yet, he sounded panicked. It's grandfather. He's crashing. I stood frozen. Crashing? The man had just summoned the strength to throw a glass at my head. How could he be crashing? When I got back to the room, it was chaos. Doctors and nurses were swarming the bed. My grandfather was wearing an oxygen mask, and the line on the heart monitor was flattening into a terrifyingly straight line. What happened? I asked a passing nurse. The patient became overagitated. It triggered a massive cardiac arrest. I looked at the dying old man and felt a knot of complicated emotions. He hated me. He tried to disown me, but he was still my grandfather, and I had killed him. Just then, his eyes fluttered open. He weakly pulled the oxygen mask from his face and lifted a shaking, withered hand, pointing directly at me. Yep, he rasped. Yep, he stared at me, and in his eyes, the suspicion and hatred were gone. They were replaced with something else. A look of dawning comprehension, and was that approval? Good boy, he whispered, his voice a ghost of sound. He used his last ounce of strength to utter the words that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Truly, My grandson. That performance. You even fooled me. The family is safe with you. I can rest now. His head lolled to the side. His hand dropped. The heart monitor let out one long, final beep, and the world went silent. I stood there, feeling like I'd been struck by lightning. What? What did he just say? Performance? He thought my heartbroken, defeated exit was all part of the act? He thought it was a brilliant final move to win his trust. And because of that, he hadn't cut me out of the will? He had given it all to me? I looked at the revised legal document a nurse was now handing my father, and I knew my life was over. I wasn't free. I was more trapped than ever. Why? Why did I, a man whose only ambition was to do nothing, keep failing upwards into becoming the king of everything? I turned and looked at Julian, the go-getter, the prodigy who had worked his whole life for this, and who had just lost it all. There was no jealousy in his eyes, no resentment, only a look of profound, blissful relief, which then morphed into pure, unadulterated worship. He walked over to me, placed a hand on my shoulder, and said with the deepest sincerity I had ever heard, "Cole, you won. You played the game better than anyone. From this day forward, you are my God." And in that moment, I finally understood. I knew why this had all happened. In a family of world-class drama queens and conspiracy theorists, a simple, straightforward guy like Julian never stood a chance. His only path to survival was to be driven completely insane. And now, he was one of them, and I was their king. End.